Hi, thanks for joining. I'll just get started with the session today. Um, so today we're going to talk about Cisco UCCX agents and in particular look at some aspects on how to help when it comes to supervision and as well as testing UCCX system configurations, etc. and agent interactions. So today we'll run over the usual kind of stuff to start with. So just a little bit of the house rules and a little bit of background about UnifiedFX. So I'll do that kind of quickly because I'd imagine most people here probably know a bit about who we are. The main functionality that we'll be using is effectively primarily coming from PhoneView. So we'll do a quick feature summary just to recap that. And then the two main topics in terms of agent supervision, that's really about seeing what your individual agents are up to. You can see what calls they're interacting with and the state, whether or not they're accepting calls from the queue. You can also use PhoneView to listen to the agents and whisper with them as well. So that's engaging the silent monitoring capability. And not really in this session, but it is related, and we do have a separate webinar as well, is the concept of obviously a wallboard where you can see all your agent states, etc. So I'll just touch on that briefly, but that is a separate product. The core focus for today really is about PhoneView's features in this regard. Then we'll talk about the UCCX testing aspect, so that will touch on the virtual endpoint functionality within PhoneView, which is very powerful and enables that UCCX testing capability. It can actually be extended to the point of actually having virtual agents, which gives you a lot of flexibility for testing. And then we'll run through a few testing scenarios that effectively the functionality enables you to do really easily. And then we'll kind of conclude with the demo will touch on some of those testing scenarios in particular and the monitoring aspects. So we'll cover that in the demo. And then if there's any questions, etc., we'll cover that. And there's a little bit about the licensing at the end. The house rule is pretty straightforward. Just please remember to use the Q&A panel when submitting questions and submit it to all panelists. Mohammed is usually kind of backing me up on that regard to answer some of the questions, so feel free to submit them at any point. The session is being recorded, so you can email sales@unifiedfx.com to get a copy once it's ready. And that's pretty much it for today. In terms of UnifiedFX and our other products, the main one we'll be touching on today is obviously PhoneView. All of them are Cisco compatible. Some have just been recently updated. WallboardFX just recently completed compatibility testing for all the latest versions there. In fact, MigrationFX as well just recently updated, and PhoneView will be going through its next cycle when Communication Manager 14 is available for testing. PhoneView itself, is used by lots of people, etc., in lots of different ways. So we're really just looking at a subset of its functionality in relation to contact centers. WallboardFX, again, that's something that's relevant to this topic, and we have a separate event which you might have already registered for, and Mohammed will post a link in chat if you haven't already, and you can sign up for that. But the wallboard that we have, that really the key points are, it's really simple to install. It can even upgrade itself if you want it to. 100% browser based, no plugins, and by design, architecturally, it provides the fastest real-time updates, which is obviously important for a wallboard display. And then the last thing that we kind of go to market with really is our MigrationFX product, which is something that we created on request of Cisco and has a unique patented approach for making it incredibly simple to replace old phones for new. Does a few things on top of that, but that's really the original premise. So going back to focusing on the topic at hand in terms of PhoneView, this is a kind of condensed summary really of the features within PhoneView. So for example, that second bullet point, there's a lot in there, right, in that one bullet point. So this isn't really about labouring all the details of what PhoneView can do. But it's quite useful because if you look at the bold items in here, these are the features relevant to kind of monitoring contact center agent activity and obviously performing testing, etc. So these are obviously the features that we'll be talking about today in a bit more detail, but that's just a kind of quick recap of some of the things within PhoneView. The thing that's maybe worth just adding into the mix, because I sometimes forget to mention it, is the additional capabilities of PhoneFX, NotificationFX. It's not actually on this slide, but we also have an AutomationFX SDK component. So if there's anything in regards to single phone control that looks good, is browser-based and easy to use, that's PhoneFX. You can contact us about that. NotificationFX is about sending and receiving text messages to and from Cisco phones, including audio pages, paging, etc. And then all of our capabilities can be automated programmatically using the AutomationFX SDK. So again, if there's anything that you're seeing here and you have an angle on it being automated, would make your life easier. Again, that's another element that we could talk about separately. But for now, that's just items in bold that we're going to cover today. So the first kind of area I want to cover is agent supervision, and in particular, monitoring and manipulating an agent state. So within PhoneView, and we'll show you this in the demonstration, we can quite easily identify all the agents within the telephone system effectively within the cluster. We link out their agent data such as the UCCX extension to the agent ID that's set up against it. And another component which is particularly powerful is a linkage to the real-time state of each of those agents. And when we have that real-time state, we actually have it available to summarize as well. So that breaks it down into the main states, if they're logged in or not, if they're ready, not ready, etc. So you can instantly see how many people are in each of those states within the user interface. And again, I'll show you where that information is rather than just a little screen grab. One of the features you can do is log in as an agent as well. That's typically used more likely in the virtual agent scenario, but the mechanic is there to log somebody in. You would need their credentials, etc., as part of that. Oh, 2 seconds. I don't know if someone sends a chat message. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Mohammed, for posting that in there. Then you've got high availability support. So that's something that we didn't have originally in our wallboard product, but we managed to add that into both wallboard and the same libraries used within PhoneView. So it's UCCX integration supports high availability too, which is great. Now, being able to see the state and log in is obviously helpful, but probably the kind of top feature I would imagine in this regard is the ability to set an agent state. So once you can see a state, if there's anybody that you want to force to be ready, etc., and deal with calls, that's obviously a useful capability, and I'll show you how that works. A key point to mention is PhoneView also supports multiple UCCX systems, basically clusters. So you can have 2 or 3 clusters. They can technically all work with PhoneView at the same time. Each cluster could have its own UCCX system that it's integrated to, and you can put in the details for all those systems and see a consolidated view of all of those agents across all of those systems in one place as well, if you wanted to. So next kind of topic relating to supervision is the monitoring. So that really comes into interacting with the agent and their phone call. When we're talking about audio, we're talking about monitoring, we're talking about audio monitoring. So that is an existing feature within PhoneView. It's been in there quite a long time. In fact, when I was putting the slide deck together for this session, I realised that I don't actually have a copy of a slide that talks specifically about remote audio. And even if I had one, it's probably from quite a long time ago because that feature's been in the product for so long. And it's used quite heavily and extensively by some clients because it is particularly easy to use and flexible. And the main premise of using it is to enable or start-stop monitoring on individual devices. That could be hard phones, soft phones, etc. The kind of little icon there with the headphone and the headphone with the red kind of cross out on top, that's from the toolbar within PhoneView. So that's how you would start and stop monitoring. I'll show you the demonstration, but all you effectively do is select the phone you want to listen to, click the corresponding icon to start monitoring, and then whatever the nominated device is, you can then hear the audio from there. Now, the actual monitoring where you listen from can either be your PC that PhoneView is running on. In that particular situation, we can use either a CTI port, which you can configure and set up for PhoneView to use, or you can actually just use a Jabber device and get this is the virtual endpoint concept, which we'll cover a little bit more detail, but we can actually register a Jabber device inside PhoneView, and PhoneView becomes a soft phone client effectively at that point. If you use that particular mode, that soft phone client would technically become nominated as the admin phone, and then if you do a monitoring session, the far end agent that you're listening to, you would set up a whisper stroke coaching session to that soft phone or Jabber instance inside PhoneView, and you just talk through the headset, microphone, etc. on your computer. I'll talk about the media side of that a little bit more detail, but you can it does support multiple sound devices, etc. So you can choose a particular headset you want to have the audio coming through when you're using PhoneView with the Jabber device. The other way or other devices to monitor from, and the kind of term that we use in the product is called admin phone, can just be basically any physical or soft phone that we have available to us in the cluster. So if you've got a particular agent you're listening to and you're at your desk, don't know when people are going to be back at the desk right enough, but if you're back at your desk, you can then nominate your desk phone to be an admin phone, and you will receive the monitoring session and the coaching feature to your desk phone. Obviously, nowadays with everybody, agents and supervisors pretty much being at home a lot of the time, that also works with soft phones as well. So if you can run PhoneView, you can be looking at your agents, and you can have your own Jabber client nominated as the admin phone, and then initiate silent monitoring and receive it from there. Just by default, that monitoring feature sends a courtesy text message. It only can do that to a physical phone, obviously. That can be disabled if you want to, and you're warned about disabling it, because some countries require that kind of notification to be pushed when somebody is monitored. But ultimately, that's built in by default as well. So that's how we kind of listen, so we can see what the agents are doing and manipulate it, and then we can listen in to ensure quality. And the third aspect that I've got in here relating to supervision relates to a separate product that we sell, which is UnifiedFX. As I say, we've got a separate session to cover that in more detail, but I tried to kind of bring it in here because it's obviously relevant. And as I kind of touched on before, it's a browser-based wallboard, which is obviously good because you can use it and display it from anywhere. Maybe a little bit less common to need a wallboard in current climate with everybody typically being at home for a large period of time. But when hopefully we eventually go back to the office and whatever kind of world that looks like, then I'm sure there'll be a similar need again to kind of start using wallboards a bit more than we currently do. But if you still have a requirement to push that real-time information, queue information, agent state information, and make give your agents visibility of it, because it's browser based, even when they're working from home, etc., they can pull that up and see exactly what's happening. It can be configured as a widget within Finesse as well. So again, within the agent's supervisor or the agent's client, effectively, as they're interacting with the customer calls, they can embed that information in and see what state's kind of happening. So as I said, I don't want to steal my own thunder when it comes to that session later on, and Mohammed's already posted the link to it. If you want to find out more about the wallboard product, we'll be having another session on it in about a month or so. Now, the next area I wanted to cover is the testing side of it. So it's great from a real-time perspective to have visibility of agents, etc., and see what's happening. And obviously, you can use that in testing situations too. But I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about how you can actually work with and directly drive your contact center configuration. So that might be, testing and navigating IVR menus, making sure that ACD queues route the way you want them to, that the skill groups and the cascades for agents, etc., skills all kind of work as you intend them to. Now, obviously, testing is the kind of thing you might do when you're setting up something or changing a particular script. So it's not something you would normally do every day, but whenever you've got major changes, this becomes particularly helpful. Now, one of the key features in PhoneView that gives you the nice simple flexibility to do this testing is a concept that we've added called virtual endpoints. This can be a little bit tricky to explain, and if you were on the session that I did about 3 weeks ago, this topic was heavily covered in there too, so I do apologise if anybody's on that session's on this one. This will be a bit of an overlap, but it's also the opportunity to try and maybe refresh and reiterate what this feature is about. Fundamentally, it is, as the bullet point says, it's multiple real Jabber instances on a single PC. So within PhoneView, underneath the hood, it has effectively a soft phone client, the actual Jabber SDK, technically Jabber Web SDK built in, and we can spin up multiple of those instances at the same time on a single computer. Because normally when you deal with Jabber clients and soft phone clients, it's usually one client instance per PC, which is obviously the intended purpose. So it's individual users with individual client sessions. But when you can actually have multiple on a single machine, then that means you can have multiple different endpoints at the same time, all running on a single machine. Hence the concept of calling them virtual endpoints. It's a bit like virtual servers, where you can have virtual machines all on the one server. It's the same thing, but for software instances, technically. So that's the key premise of the virtual endpoint functionality. Some things that are important to know if it's relevant to your environment is it supports registration with different clusters as well. That can be quite good if you've got PSTN testing and you're routing calls between clusters or etc. That allows it all to happen in one environment and session. By design, we've made it really quick and simple to set up and configure and register, etc. You can effectively nominate a particular Jabber device to auto-register whenever PhoneView is launched. It will basically become live as a soft client when PhoneView is opened if you want it to. You can also turn on auto answer per instance too, so you could have 2 or 3 virtual endpoints, turn on auto answer, and then whenever another device you're working with or an agent or an IVR call routing script or something sends it to that destination, it will obviously auto answer and you can deal with the call accordingly, so that's convenient. You can control these virtual endpoints using CTI, and because they're proper Jabber SDK devices, they also support third-party applications and call control. So everything from a CTI JTAPI point of view, that the normal Jabber client supports, these virtual endpoints support too, which means if you've got third-party applications within your contact center, you can configure them to work with these virtual endpoints, and they should behave just as though it was a normal soft phone device that your end users would be using too. So we do have customers that are using that for testing, like call recording systems, to make sure that they do, initiate call recording at the right time, at the right device, etc. But the point is, these virtual endpoints are full Cisco CTI endpoints. So all the things that Cisco JTAPI enables is available to those devices, those virtual endpoints, which is obviously key for a contact center, because obviously CTI is a key component of any contact center of any level of complexity. Each particular instance technically supports two-way audio and video. The video side of it is something that we haven't really released generally. It's a kind of we class it as a beta level feature. So we don't turn it on or don't make it available by default. You can contact us, again, sales@unifiedfx.com, if you want to try that out, and we can turn on the video aspect of it. But we're really focused on the video support, and certainly for most contact centres, still, audio is the primary mode of communication when it comes to things like UCCX. And, excuse me. And because the virtual endpoints are full Jabber devices, it does allow you to test more advanced features. So not just what do you call it, our application and stuff like that in terms of PhoneView and PhoneFX, but other third-party call monitoring recording solutions, you can test them out using these endpoints. Now, because I always find this one interesting, right? But because we have two things, we can bring them together. So one thing we have are virtual endpoints. So just like soft phones on their own, you can listen in on calls, you can make calls, you can listen in calls, call people, speak to people, etc. through them, just like any soft phone. And you can have multiple all at the same time. So you have multiple calls you get at the same time, which can obviously be quite confusing, but helpful. So that's one aspect, which is the virtual endpoints. And the other component, which I touched on earlier from a supervision point of view, is the ability to log in agents and change their state. And if you bring those two things together, a virtual endpoint and the ability to work with agent state, that effectively gives you the ability to create virtual agents, which is really what this is about. Which this means that because you can have virtual endpoints to basically become, customer phones to dial into your queue and navigate the IVR, etc. at one side, and then on the other side, you can have virtual agents there ready and available within the queues, etc. To receive those calls. It means you can have a single piece of software that can do full end-to-end interactive testing of your UCCX environment. So it's not just there to put calls in, it's also there to become agents and receive calls, etc. That really is a powerful capability. So it means that effectively you've got a contact center application in a box, or a contact center testing application in a box. So literally, you don't even need real phones or soft phones anywhere else. You can literally just have an instance of PhoneView, a Cisco Communication Manager cluster, and a UCCX system configured with it, and literally nothing else. So just pure software and just three machines effectively from a configuration point of view. And you could perform, test, create, and validate, pretty much any form of UCCX application and testing. So it's really good for a lab testing environment as well, just to have it in isolation, as well as obviously, having a number of virtual agents possibly configured against your production system. So you can do some ad hoc testing as changes come in and send them calls through to virtual agents first, which you can easily manipulate on your single test environment without having to disturb real agents and let them do their job as they would normally do. In terms of the screenshot here, and you'll see this in the demo, the kind of top right hand image is a little login box. So that's how we log in to a particular agent. So we would choose a virtual endpoint, which would just be registered as a soft client effectively normally. And then the next stage is to log it in using that login box. So that'll be the corresponding agent ID and password. And once they're in, that's the virtual agent effectively activated. Then you have the ability to change the state. So it could always go ready so that the agent that's already in registered against the contact center queue that it's configured against will be able to accept calls. And then the kind of 4 screen images that you're seeing are 4 pictures down the bottom there, side by side. That's a snippet out of PhoneView that's showing you basically 4 devices. In this case, they've got 4 different states. I'll cover this in the demo, obviously, but there's a few key bits of information in that screen grab that's worth pointing out. The icon in the bottom left corner represents the agent state. So in this case, we've deliberately got 4 states. So blue is basically logged out. red is not ready, so they're logged in but not ready to take a call. Green is ready, so they're logged in and ready to take a call. And yellow effectively is reserved, so that's when are busy, so that's when the call's coming in, etc. So, or they're obviously in a call and active. So you've really got the state visibility nice and easily across all your devices that your agents are using. On top of that, I just want to mention this little icon because it's not very obvious, but this little eye symbol here, that's a little icon that represents what we call the admin phone. You can have one admin phone at a time. And that's, if you initiate a monitoring session, that's where the call will be listened from effectively. So it can be literally any phone on your cluster, assuming it's set up accordingly. So that's just a quick kind of overview of how we kind of pull virtual endpoints and UCCX functionality to create virtual agents and what it kind of looks like in the application. Now, in terms of the different scenarios that PhoneView allows you to work with from a testing point of view, obviously the kind of headline item is the fact that you can do end-to-end testing of your UCCX system using this capability. That means you can obviously validate the routing and logic behind your UCCX scripts and the various interactions. You could test the call distribution when you're putting calls through the agent queues and make sure your skill-based routing is working as you expect it to. Obviously, queue overflow is quite an important thing. You could have a separate set of queues you want to test against and separate overflow destinations if you want to kind of replicate it that way, or you could do it with a production system out of hours, just depends, or have some kind of shadow configurations. But fundamentally, you can test your queue overflows whichever way suits you. You could test certain supervisor operations such as the audio monitoring, etc., that we're kind of talking about, as well as third-party monitor recording systems, because you can initiate anything that an agent can do using these virtual agents, and ensure that if you check up with your monitor recording systems that they did, listen in or record the audio. And I've obviously said this before, but I quite like stressing this point. There is no need for multiple PCs. You can do this all on a single computer running PhoneView. So it makes it really portable, flexible, and simple to do this testing. The other thing is, because the agents themselves can log directly in from PhoneView, you don't need to have lots of kind of finesse browser sessions going on to use the kind of finesse interface to log agents in. Still do that if you want, obviously, but there's other ways to achieve that by using the virtual agents. It's probably a bit more technical and out of whack than I originally kind of planned the kind of flow the slides to go, but I kept this in here just because I thought it was worth mentioning, because it's actually quite simple by design. But effectively, if you've got an existing PhoneView installation set up, there's only two tabs you have to work with from a configuration point of view. It will usually prompt you to populate these if you try and initiate the feature automatically. But effectively, all you do is go to edit the configuration of your cluster. So that's on the menu, you go to group, then edit and choose your cluster name. Within that, although it's not listed in there as a step, there's a little blue link that says advanced configuration. So it's inside there. And that's a screen grab of what the advanced configuration page looks like in PhoneView. And there's basically two tabs. There's a tab for Jabber configuration, and then there's a tab for UCCX configuration. Effectively, the Jabber configuration is used for the registration of those Jabber devices, so you can have the virtual endpoints effectively. The point about that Jabber user is it needs to be an end user. There's a Jabber requirement. So we need to, if you've got Active Directory integration, it needs to be a user account that you've got or created on Active Directory that you use. And that Jabber user that you have on your communication manager, it just needs device association to the Jabber devices that you're going to use for registration within PhoneView. If that's just virtual endpoints, it just needs to be those particular Jabber devices that you've created for that purpose. It doesn't conflict with any other device associations as a separate set of associations. It doesn't remove any. It's just a separate additional configuration that you can apply so that the user account you set up inside PhoneView can bring those Jabber devices online effectively with that association. Then the second point is probably the more useful one in terms of agent state, if you're maybe just wanting to do the supervision functionality and not the actual testing side of it. It's a simple thing. This is one extra tab, which is called UCCX, and all you do is put in the separate details. You can put multiple in with a comma, separating them if it's multiple nodes for high availability. And as soon as you put that in, you'll then, PhoneView will open up a connection to those that UCCX system and start immediately getting real-time agent state data through. So it's pretty simple to set up. The UCCX in particular, it's just the server details, which is great. Can't get any easier than that. Okay, so that's the kind of overview side of it. If you bear with me a little second, I'll just get my demo system ready. If it's still connected, hopefully it is. Yeah. Let me share that. Okay, let's resize this. So I'll take you through the agent state information first before I kind of do anything a bit more interactive. So we've got PhoneView running. On the left-hand side here, we've got the Data Explorer panel. That provides a summary of all the relevant phone information that we have. So you can see, for example, when it comes to things like the model of the different phones, that's all summarized in here. The number in brackets is the quantity of devices within that particular category. In this case, I'm just working with Jabber devices. So I've got a filter in there, so I'm only looking at those. I also have another filter, which is looking at registered devices. So this is registered Jabber devices on our lab cluster. But the thing I want to draw your attention to is up the top here, which is agent state. So we can see that in our case, we've got 11 agents. 9 of them are not logged in, 2 of them are logged in, and they're both ready. If I go to one of these agents, oh yeah, I'm doing it without describing it. Let's say I go to this third phone here, right? And if I right click on it, I get this context menu pop up. There's quite a few things in here. I'll talk you through some of them. But basically, the agent state, which is this little option down here, this is where I can log a user out or change toggle their state. So if I do not ready, you can see the color change to red here. I'll maybe do that again so you can see it. And we can see instantly the agent state change. Now here's the thing, if I check that checkbox, I'm only now looking at not ready agents, for example. And this all updates live. Our system's obviously quite static, it's just me driving it. But you can imagine a real contact center environment, I would literally dynamically add and remove your agent devices in here as they're answering calls and changing state, etc. Let me do that again just so you kind of see it in action. So if I do agent state, so I'm going to go ready, and if you watch that little coloured icon there, you can see that changes straight away, and that ready quantity is going to 2 again. Then if we go to, so the view on the right here, screen view, this is a visual representation of the agent devices that they're using. The view that we're using right now is screen rendering. To enable that, you go up to the phone screenshot button and you choose automatic screen render. This is underneath the category of all visible phones. So even if I had 100 agents, etc. in here, it doesn't actually get the status of a 100, because if you can only see 20 of them, it will just get it for the 20 that are visible. And as you scroll up and down, it dynamically changes which ones that it refreshes the display for. So we're seeing a real-time view of the call activity on those agents. So if I choose this device here and I get it to call, I'll maybe tell you how I did that in a second. We can see it's put the call in, and we'll hang that up. Now, that's showing you the real-time state of the device, the call that it's on, that kind of idea in a nice simple way. Now, to initiate that, that was the keypad down the bottom left corner, and I'll show you a bit more detail on that in a second. But just to show you the kind of visual representation side, we'll do a bit more demos in there in a second. But I wanted to show you that first because it gives you a bit of context for this next tab, which is called Data View. This is the same for devices, effectively, or agent devices, and it's a raw table of the data that we have. Now, there's quite a lot of information in here, so it may not always be relevant, but if I scroll over a little bit, if we have, I think there's a couple of specific columns. Oh, that's what I was trying to find there. So these three columns here are of a particular note. So this tells you the actual UCCX configuration against that device of which particular agent is configured to use it. So we can see here we've got some test agents and a real agent for Mohammed's configuration. We can see the particular extension that is configured as the agent extension under that column, obviously. And then we've got the agent state. Now, this agent state is real-time data. It is actually the information that we summarize in the Data Explorer on the left. So if we're in a real environment with lots of calls kind of happening, you would see those cells change in real time to all the different states. But really the point is just showing that these are the agent-specific fields that are inside this table. All this data can be exported as well. So you can just do File, Export, and then choose what level of records, everything, or filter or selected, etc. And that will be saved out to a spreadsheet. Now, if we go back to screen view, I'll start taking you through some of the kind of agent-specific scenarios. Now, the way I've got this configured at the moment is I'm treating this right-hand phone with my name on it as a kind of customer-client phone, effectively, for most of the test scenarios. This phone here could be a remote agent somewhere, somewhere far away that you're not within audio distance of, because we're going to listen to that call remotely. These two, and technically, actually, these three devices are all registered as soft clients inside this instance of PhoneView, so they're effectively acting as virtual endpoints. Although this has got an agent icon, I'm not logged in with that particular first one, but these two I am logged in here. So these are configured as virtual agents. Just to kind of show you, if I do right click, agent state, log out, so it's going blue. So all I basically have is an endpoint here which is registered. To register it, I do right click, register. I'm going to unregister it and then re-register it. Right click again. So this would be its default state to begin with. So if I register it, that's going to bring it online inside the client. Might take a little second for it to reappear. There we go, it's back in again. Because my filter only shows registered device, that's why it disappeared there. So it's back online, and it's registered within PhoneView. So it's a soft client running on this computer that PhoneView is running on, and technically I've got three at the same time all registered. And now that I've got this device registered, to basically turn it into a virtual agent, all I then do is choose agent login down the bottom here. This prompts me, it knows the agent ID that's configured for that phone, so you can't change that anyway. It's a database change, so that's why I would just show you what it is. But the thing you do have to obviously enter and know is the password. So we log in with that password. Obviously by default it's not ready, so we've got a little red icon there. And if I right click and I do agent state, then I can do ready, and then we've got both those ready. So that's me using or registering virtual endpoints. That's me setting that virtual endpoint up as an agent, so turning it into a virtual agent effectively. Now let me do some actual calls and call tests. So I think maybe the first thing I'll do is just put a simple call into a queue. So let me treat this as our client phone calling in, and I'm going to use the keypad here to control this. Obviously this could be a real phone or a mobile phone calling into a queue, but this is, I can show you the actual call coming in by using a virtual endpoint as well. The keypad on the bottom left corner, just to quickly summarise it, there's two tabs at the beginning, old and new. They really represent physical key button mappings. You can still use them, it'll work on soft phones as well, for the most part, except for some buttons around the edge there. But they're really meant for controlling physical phones primarily. The universal keypad is purely focused on CTI logical operations, and they work for hard and soft phones. It's also a lot simpler to use for call testing scenarios, such as with a contact center. And the way it's structured is there's a kind of text box up here, and any number that you put in there will work with those three buttons at the top there. That's what the kind of divider line is trying to indicate. So I can conference in that destination, transfer to that number, or call that number. And then down the bottom, you've obviously got your keypad that can be used to dial a number, or in a mid-call situation, it will automatically send it as DTMF digits, so just behaving like a real phone would, as you would expect. Answer, end call, hold, unhold. So that's obviously just supplementary services and call initiation, hang up, etc. So let's get started. So if I take this phone here, and what I'm going to do is get it to call somewhere now. Oops, sorry, a second. I forgot, I did the wrong phone. It's this one here I was going to do. So I'm just going to treat this phone here as calling into the queue. In fact, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to treat this phone as calling into the queue. So if I do call on this one. So you can see it's routed the call to the first agent there. Agent's gone not ready because I didn't answer. Second agent is now ringing in.
Representatives are assisting other callers at this time.
And we can hear
your call is very
the audio
important to
feedback.
us. Please stay on the line, and your call will be handled in the order it was received.
Fell back to the default kind of please wait message. So what we're really able to test there is just the ACD mechanics. So I'm calling in from representing a customer phone. I can hear it as we've got a bit noisy there, but I can obviously hear the IVR prompt and messages. I can hear the call state ringing out and being held when it's transferring and queuing. I can also hear these virtual agents when they are ringing because the call's coming in, as you saw that. And
all of our representatives are assisting other callers at this time. Your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line, and your call will be handled in the order it was received.
So just to show you a little bit of that again, if I now go to this device here and now set the agent state to ready, it will reattempt to place that call into queue. And then you can see it went back to
assisting other callers at this
just
time.
hang that up for now. So that's a simple queue testing scenario. That allows me to put a call into a queue, and I've only got 2 agents set up here, but you can then see how the call is distributed to those agents. I'm going to show you navigating an IVR menu in a minute, but obviously in a more advanced queuing situation, you might have, 1 for sales, 2 for finance, and those kind of options. Then it may have different groups of destinations, but as you can see, in a smaller setup like this, you can kind of get the idea that you can prove which agent the call is going to land on. And you can obviously remotely change their state. Now let me do the audio monitoring aspect of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this phone here, and I'm going to make it dial in as well. This time we won't hear anything because it's not a virtual endpoint on the machine, it's an actual endpoint someone else has got registered. So if I do call on this one, we don't hear anything this time at the moment, but obviously that's got the prompt kind of going. And then what I'm going to do is monitor from this device here, the Stephen Welsh device, and notice I've got this little green icon. So if I right click, there's this option at the top called admin phone. Let me just turn that off. The little green icon's gone. If I right click, and I choose admin phone, it's back again. And you can only nominate one device as the admin phone. See the little icon moving as I do that? So let me do that again, back to this one. So that's where the monitoring session will be sent to, and we will listen from effectively. To initiate it, we choose the device that's in a call that we want to listen to. And on the toolbar, we've got these two little icons. So that one to start the monitoring and this one to stop. Now, because the way this IVR prompt plays, it's really just most of the content at the beginning. I'm going to hang this call up and then I'm going to do it kind of quickly. I'm going to make the call from that first Java device, and then I'm going to quickly monitor it. I just wanted to show you the main elements of the user interface to enable it there. So if I hang up, so I'm going to call again, and I'm going to click monitor.
Callers at this time. Your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line and your call will be handled in the order it was received.
Now, you have to bear in mind, as with many people, I'm at home at the moment, and this is our lab in the office, so I've got a VPN connection, a remote desktop session, stuff like that. So the actual audio quality is really poor in a lot of situations. As you're going to see in a minute when I do the test recording, it's really choppy and bad, unfortunately. So this isn't really representative of most situations. It's just my setup's not the best in the world for doing this type of demo.
All of our representatives are assisting other callers at this time. Your call is very important.
So let me do that again. I'm going to leave that in, right? But all I did was click that icon. And what was happening was the phone that I have selected, which is in a call, when I click that, it bridges the built-in bridge in that phone and it sends a copy of the audio to the admin phone, which is that one. But you have to select the phone you want to monitor when you click the icon. And if you look at the display there, it's actually a coaching session. So it's silent monitor with whisper. So we're hearing it, and the far end party, the 19004 party this phone's talking to, can't hear anything.
All of our representatives are assisting other callers at this time. Your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line and your call will be handled in the order it was received.
So that's a typical, contact center silent monitoring scenario. So let me just turn that off and I'll hang up that call. Right, the last kind of part of the demo that I wanted to cover was really to kind of not complex IVR kind of navigation and interactions. So in some level, what I've shown you is pretty basic because it's just putting calls into queues and calls coming out of queues and proving that they're routed to the right place. But usually there's quite a lot more in the middle, of that call routing scenario, which with an appropriate IVR configuration. The IVR message test script that I've got, it's quite a handy one because it allows me to record a prompt dynamically and it plays it back, so it kind of proves that I've recorded something. So the reason why I've chosen that one is by doing that, I can then show you the kind of microphone aspect of these virtual endpoints getting used. So I need to change my queue number. So I'm just going to dial into the queue from this phone. Let me do that again, actually, because sometimes the second time I connect it sounds a wee bit better. But it's not a queue, so it's like an IVR prompt, and hopefully you can hear what it's saying. It might not be the clearest in the world.
Your PIN code.
So it's saying enter your PIN code. So doing that with GTMF.
Please enter the 4-digit number of the prompt.
So what's a 4-digit number?
You are currently working on prompt number
2222.
If this is the correct prompt, press 1. Otherwise, press 2.
So we'll confirm that.
Press 1 to play, press 2 to record, press 3 to enter a new message number, or you may hang up.
So we'll record using option 2.
At the sound of the tone, record your prompt. When finished recording, press the pound key.
This is a test message using PhoneView to demonstrate virtual endpoints, navigating and testing an IVR menu.
Press 1 to replay your recording, press 2 to save, or press 3 to re-record.
This is the bit that will be really choppy with my current setup, unfortunately. I hope you'll make something.
Press 1 to replay your recording, press 2 to save.
This is the text message using PhoneView to demonstrate virtual endpoints, navigating and exiting an IDR menu.
Press 1 to replay your recording, press 2 to save, or press 3 to...
And I'll just hang up. If anybody watches Doctor Who, and you'll know this straight away, it basically sounds like a Dalek, the way that comes across. I've got a remote desktop session with a remote microphone configuration, which is quite an unusual thing. And unfortunately, for my particular setup, the microphone aspect doesn't get captured over the remote desktop connection very well, hence it's very choppy. So I've got 3 hop, skips and jumps between where I am right now and the system that we're working with. So not the best demonstration from an audio quality point of view, unfortunately, but hopefully you get the point. That's primarily it from a demo point of view. There's obviously other ways to approach this and other kind of scenarios I could cover. If you let me flip back to the slides, in fact that's still sharing, so I should be able to just jump straight back. And then we'll kind of start doing some questions and wrapping up. So I don't know, I think there's been 1 or 2 questions in there that Mohammed's maybe answered, but I'll bring them up and see if there's any there. And as we're going through the questions, I'll just leave this on for referencing. One of the things that we did as part of adding soft phone support is we added it for no additional cost for any physical phone licenses that you've got within PhoneView. You get a corresponding equivalent amount of soft phones matching that count. Recently, we actually increased the virtual phone count that you get included. It used to just be 1 virtual endpoint, but now it's 2, which actually we should have done at the beginning because that allows you to make 2 calls between themselves. Then to those particular editions, the free lab edition, as well as obviously the paid editions, and obviously more than 2 virtual endpoints we can add on to that. UCCX agents, similarly, we give you a level of UCCX agents included for free, basically 10, so you can see and test the functionality. Just basically put your UCCX server information into PhoneView and it will start working straight away. And obviously, if you want to do more than 10 agents, we can add to that as well. Any more detail, etc. And you can contact sales at UnifiedFX. And it's all obviously built into the latest version of PhoneView, which is 7.1. Okay, let me bring up